Hi again. What causes you to? Do you believe that you're a free agent? You can do whatever you please, whatever you want. You can. I don't. No one controls me. You'd be greatly surprised to discover. Uh, a documentary, and then later on, people get kind of come forward and spill the beans on something called MK Ultra. And then there was other mind altering experimentations that happened. Um, um, Experimentation. Sorry, I just had something on the phone pop up there. Something experimentations on people on the human brain, and they even said there was people who did synopsis or documentaries or still up today wondering that people who came back from the world wars and even people who came back from Vietnam. They said a lot of them when they actually when they were there's a term for it, when they're introduced into society before they are decompression and all this other stuff. They said they used to take a lot of them and take them to secret places and experiment on them. They did mind altering experiments. And of course, when a lot of these vets came back, people would say, "Oh well, look at what the war did to them." And later on, people were starting to wonder: did something else happen to these people? Some of these people who came back, was there experimentation done to them? And during the time of when they said some soldiers were coming back, they were basically given a place of recovery. That recovery turned into a place of experimentation called MK Ultra. Look it up. Throughout history, yeah, actually back a little bit, in the Bible, it says that the whole world, okay, is moved about by this secret uh, uh, massive club called Babylon. And it says that it deceives the whole world through sorcery. The very word sorcery, that was actually translated meant pharma, which means pharmaceutical, from where we get pharmaceutical. Throughout history, even Hitler did this too. Hitler, he dedicated buildings to the experimentation of drugs. The armies all around the world experiment on germ warfare, on chemical warfare. Okay, do you know how they were able to get it to work? Do you know times too? And this is another thing that's even been brought up. That homeless people appear dead in with the tags on them, and they say, is there a probability that they will take people off the street and take them and experiment on them? You know, you kind of wonder when you see to the great lengths, and when we look on, we kind of just say, yeah, well, it appeases as long as you don't do it to people. If you see that the things that these people, the professionals, do to animals, all on the name of advancement, okay? Some of the most horrendous, it's beyond, it goes to the place of demonic, absolutely deplorable. They even said that some of these guy doctors, stuff that were on the sworn secrecy, these scientists and so on and so forth. And they said there was also where some of them were advancing, and they said they would show up missing or dead. Okay, some strange accidents would happen to them, all because the secrets were too much, and maybe they didn't want to be them to be a whistleblower, or they were ready to skip out. They saw too much. We live in a world today that really is controlled in a very large way, a very large way. And whilst we can go and play, they're playing with us. Whilst we can go to play, and they create enough. They create enough for the children to go out and play in the garden and play in the kindergarten, because that's how they see us. And they can use, even back in the 70s and so on, they used to have things called subliminal messaging in movies, right? People would go watch a movie and they practice. They used to practice subliminal messaging and get people to kind of go and get popcorn. And they even use it throughout history and advertising to get people to do things. It just goes to show how easy we are programmed, right? Where I'm going with this, with my first initial statement, can you go freely and do whatever you want? Can you live as you choose? The answer is no. You're under, to a large degree, controlled by. Okay, they have enough instruments, satellites, that can beam enough information to the human brain and get the human brain to behave a certain way. They have mass. They've even um, they've even uh, experimented with weapons for civil obedience. When there were massive outbreaks of civil unrest, they have these equipments they drive up and they shoot out a beam, and that beam will literally blast people or get people all disarray or confused, right? How do you remain free from all of it? You remember in the olden times, people used to say, well, I guess you're one of those tin foil hat people. Do you know the interesting thing that they said that people who've done experiments, they said that with the EMF experimentation, or even the what's it called, the heat sensory weapons they have now, that if there was a massive deployment to control the human race, they could just send out these not robots. Oh my God, the drones, right? Perfectly equipped with enough instrumentation to control you. Just one beam, boom, and you're down. You're down on the floor. You're down on the ground. Complete control. How do you remain? How do you remain out of control? The things that Jesus says this: the eye, the lamp of the body is the eye. Now, Satan would have known this to be obviously so true, because God, when God created us, He obviously created us with portals, right? Your eye's a portal, so is your ears, so is your mouth, so is your nose. These five senses are not just five senses; they're five portals by which anything can come in and go out, right? When the computers were made, the very basics of a computer chip, the CPU, central processing unit, by the way, by studying the brain enough, they were able to develop these chips, nanotechnology, right? Is that it's called the basic input output system, right? Do I think that they have enough on this planet right now to control us? You better believe 100%. There's equipment they're even controlling the weather, called ion weapons, right? However, whatever and however they plan to control you as an individual, you must first of all understand one thing, that where Jesus says the lamp of the body, the eye, one way they do it is through when you're sitting there watching. Scripts, shows, movies are written in such a manner to bring people in. Once you're in, you've willfully given over a certain amount of your obedience. It's called willing obedience. And within the shows that you're watching, some of them, they have written messaging. And his messaging is to appeal to your emotions, appeal to your sense of morality, sense, whatever the case is. But it's all intended to pull you in and snag you. These guys who write these scripts have been going way back to the 60s. They've been going way back. I think some of this Polanski, that's why, and he was, of course, a madman, but he discovered, he obviously came on, I don't know, we got the revelation, but that's Charles Manson. He went and killed the Polanski and some of these other people, and he said because they were the people of the pig. They were the people who were really behind the show, and they were writing the scripts, and they're writers, and they were well employed and endowed to be able to take control of people, right? How much his theory is right, whatever. But the guy was a nut. He went way off the deep end. May he have had a point? High probability. I see I get banned. It's a nut. I'm not promoting Charles Manson, by the way. Don't let's not running off in Snoofyville on that one. But where I'm going with this is that we are not as enabled and as willful as we think we are. And there has been reports of people, even when people discovered cures for some diseases. I won't even name them. They said their factories are burned to the ground. They disappeared overnight. And you know, the one thing geniuses are always going to be targeted. And what makes you a genius, especially when you start to smell it, and you say this something isn't right. This smells bad. You start to get sensitized. That's when your senses kick in, right? All of a sudden, you're not as dumbed down as the masses, the rest of the people. When you start to sound the alarm, you're going to get flagged. I guarantee. And we live in a time of history that it doesn't matter whomever you're backing that says they're at the helm and they mean you well and they're going to make it great again. They're employed. Okay. There's something called a club. They call it the Billionaires Club, right? These guys have so much money and they're going to continue to have so much money because it comes off the people who are giving it to them freely. Are you programmed? You think you're so free to give it? Oh, you bet you are. Do you do it because you just want to have peace? That's the plan. That's the plan. For the sake of your peace, you give up your freedom, right? And in these times that we're living in, don't ever, especially in this time that we're living in, don't ever for a moment assume that you're so free to do as you please. You know, when a whole pandemic happened and everything else, it's amazing how many people were so free. They were so free to get right, and then it just went on to 4. I'm sure the elites are probably looking on. Man, I thought they were stupid, but no, they're stupid. They're really stupid. They're really beyond stupid. They'll just do anything we ask of them. The puppet show, the master puppeteers, right? Pulling them along, right? And the thing is that 4 was not enough. Then they went for 7. Then they went for 8. The boosters, right? And then they came out, and then it's only till after the fact they started to say that on the websites there was all these after effects of this thing that these people took into their body. And then people started one of them was the myocarditis, which comes from the term cardiac, right? The heart. And they said there was a lot of heart failures. And I'm not going to go too much into the video as much as about this, as much as about, as long as you are inside what's called the society, you have X amount of freedom. And as long as you give up your freedom, you're going to have freedom because they get to dictate your freedom. You can go about and do whatever you want right now, but don't think you're not being watched. You know, some of these guys set up these massive telescopes, and you know, and I like watching some of these feeds, YouTube feeds, and these guys who set up these telescopes at night. They said the traffic in the sky is way more busier than it's ever been. The people who posted videos from the 70s or the 80s or in the 90s. There's so many satellites out there. There's so many technological activity going on that we can't escape it. We are even, they even say that those satellites are able to zoom right down, right into a person's bedroom window. That's how close they are to you. So your freedom, and when you think you can go and do as you please, don't think that for a moment. And when and should we be in the time of history as new laws? And it's interesting, it says that in the Bible too. It says that when the Antichrist, even before the forerunners come in, the system begins to come into place. It says they'll create new laws. new laws, laws that have never been that's really been put out there. I mean, they even have right now the rule of law when it comes to the time of war. Canada, they use that right to basically go and get rid of people, get people's banks accounts frozen, right? I'm going to end with this. I don't want to sound like I'm rambling and carrying on. Just a food for thought in my talk today. We're only talking, right? Is that we're not as free as we think we are, and thank God, yes, we do have a certain amount of freedom. I mean, I don't see anyone peering out the window looking at me, but should things change and change very quickly, should they decide to trump our dollar, should they decide to do like what happened in Venezuela and some of these other countries years ago, when they woke up one morning and there was no currency left, which means that everything that you own is now owned by someone else because you still got to pay taxes. And the interesting, if the dollar was to fail, the system won't. The system will still demand you to pay taxes on your property. If you owe the bank will come and claim the house. You see, all of these things, the ones who have it all, right? They have a large sum of a net, safety net, that one way or the other, they'll never fail. Because they can walk in with enough guns and take everything away from you, and you would not be able to say a single thing. And that's the way it goes. And one thing the human race likes to do is when they're looking on the street and they're going, "Oh, what's going on over there? Oh, I bet you they must have done something really bad. Oh, I had a feeling about that person, you know? And that's how fickle, that's how of a betraying people are to each other when it comes to the times of desperation. Because the human race in general, and it only takes only X amount of people to be able to be freed from that. And you never know how free you really are is when you're not cowardly anymore. Is when you're not cowardly, when you're brave, when you can actually step past all that, and you can go out there and you can survive. And they said even people who were trained to live off the land, they didn't survive when bad things happened. They said the people who survived are the people who had something different. There was something unique about them. There was something unique because they made up their mind to, right? Sometimes expertise will ain't gonna get you a whole lot because expertise can still make you uh, slip up and think you're too confident in being care in your safety. But the ones who make up their mind to survive are the ones who become 10 steps ahead, the ones who are very aware. As Jesus was said, be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. The ones who are able to keenly see what's going on are the ones that are going to be ready for what's coming. And I do believe it is. We live in a time in history, man, that I'm pushing some of my other videos. I pushed it because it's causing me. I'm the kind of guy I like to be a peaceful, kind of hippie kind of guy. I grew up during that time. So I like it, PC, easy going, groovy, blah, blah, blah. But something is stirring inside, man. Something is telling me it's deep down inside. Something, whether you want to say it's God, whether it be that God is sending enough information out into the atmosphere, something is up. Something is up. Don't know exactly what something is up, man. And it's kind of getting you to be a little bit more sober minded. That no, don't be asleep. Something is up. And so the Bible says that when they say peace, peace, sudden destruction will come. We're living in a time they're going to prepare the human race for peaceability, and then boom, it won't hit them. So getting back to what I said at the beginning, you do have to ask yourself, how free are you really to do as you please? You all have a good day, and do like and subscribe. Thank you.